Business owners are no longer talking about if they should be using AI, but how are we going to implement AI in our business? And what better way to explore AI use cases than from hearing the ways that we at Big Bad Marketing are actually using it in our business every single day. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Janae, and this is the Big Bad Marketing Podcast, where we work with business owners and we give you all the insider tips so you can take your business from 1996, 2012 to 2026, baby. That's where we are now. Let's do
Do this.
this. Everything you just listened to was AI. That was not real people talking. Just kidding.
AI generated podcast.
No, I'm super excited about today to talk about AI integration in small business land because there are so many ways to kick it up a notch when it comes to relying on technology to do things for you so you can get your time back and you can do more things that are useful and efficient and effective and maybe even fun or restful instead of all the tedious things that you might have been doing before. Maybe you're still doing them.
Yes, and that really is the benefit of AI is to get your time back, is to use your time, energy, money, effort on the human stuff that matters, on building the relationships and doing other things for your business. So everything that we're going to talk, right, exactly, restoration, going to a yoga class. But everything we're going to talk about today is things that we chose to automate because they were heavily repeatable processes. And I think one of the best ways to frame when AI can really make a difference in your business is if you have a task that you are either explaining repeatedly in the same way or a task that you can write down step-by-step instructions and say, first, I do this, then I do that. Third, I do this, and then I have the output. That could be a really strong candidate for AI. So, Janae, when you and I started talking about using more automation in our business, those were the types of conversations is where are we spending our time doing redundant tasks that if we could effectively automate them would save us a lot of time and headache and hassle and bring back more time into our week for doing lead generation and client conversations and the other things that are actually going to move our business forward.
Sure. And so we are going to talk through shortly here, like 5 different AI workflows that Brooke solely has created and implemented into the back end of our tech systems, whatever that means, so that we don't have to do them. So that looks like getting a few hours back each week, each month on these different tasks that I think another way to say what you've just said is like might have been a good candidate to hire someone to train them to do this thing. So we would teach them, okay, step 1, log into your computer. Step 2, grab this data from this tool, drop it over here, analyze it, do this. Step 3, 5, 7, here's all the things. And here's when you know you've gotten to the end and then what to do with the end output. Like these are things we know. So like a really simple example in my mind is like creating social media posts, for example. Like first step, build a strategy. Pull all the pieces out from the pillars and the content directions and the story frameworks, and then create a topic idea. Use those topic ideas to come up with a script for a reel, right? Like all of these things can be put into a spreadsheet and then train someone step by step how to do them. In this case, we're saying if you were going to be able to train a person to do it, why not just train an AI tool to do it? So that now not only do we not have to do it ourselves, but we also don't have to train someone or hire them, and we can make tweaks all the time using these softwares that are going on in the background.
Yes, exactly. And a really important thing to distinguish as we get into this conversation, I think at this point, most people are familiar with opening up an AI tool, whether that is Claude or Copilot or ChatGPT, and starting a chat to ask a question or get feedback or say, give me 10 ideas for a social media post. Here's a little bit of information about my business. Most people have a working familiarity with how that goes, and that is AI chat. So when we are going to discuss the workflows, this is sort of leveling up from chat, where we are using a service. In our case, we use something called make.com. You might have heard of Zapier or Claude Cowork or some other tools that are doing something similar to this. But we are now taking it a level above chat, and we have these workflows running autonomously or running on a schedule, or running based on a trigger. So as we get into them, that will make more sense. But we are basically saying no longer do I have to open a chat window and ask Claude a question. I now am creating a workflow that's going to run behind the scenes and is going to give us outputs on designated schedules or based on certain actions. I know that was a lot, Janae, so help me break it down.
I think I just went into space. I'm like, oh my God, am I AI now? Yes. Okay. So I love the opportunity for us to play to our strengths when we're in big bad marketing hats on, where I walk around like the person who can translate the things that you say from super techie perspectives. But sometimes you lose me. So I love that this creates an opportunity for our listener. So, hi, entrepreneur, business owner, whoever you are listening to this, looking for ways to integrate AI into your system, but also maybe being a person like me who's like, yeah, I can talk to ChatGPT. I've even given him a nickname, which is Chad. And I can ask him questions, I can ask questions. I can get ideas. I can even get it to draft a newsletter for me or draft an email response. And I can give it prompts that are generally pretty well constructed, pretty clear, so that the output is usually very aligned with what I'm looking for. And I need to make some human edits to it, but all of that's a fairly normal part of the process. So me being that person, I love that you and I, Brooke, are going to jump into this conversation from a point where, okay, we're assuming, listener, that you have a pretty decent tech handle that I've just described, which is you can have that conversation. You got a pretty good sense of how it works. You can get a lot of things done, but it still requires you to do the thing, which is initiate a conversation, which is grab data from one place and give it to the tool and tell it exactly what you want to do by writing it out every time. Maybe you even have that extra cheat code, which is you realized at some point, hey, I ask ChatGPT to write me an email newsletter every month. So instead of rewriting my prompt every month, I'm going to save my prompt and then I'm going to drop it in. And I'm like, that's my cheat code, is that I've done that every single time. And I'm like, here's my little paragraph. I wrote it out already. And now I'm just going to swap. But now it's September. So write about September stuff. So if you already can do all of those things and you're like, piece of cake, I'm ready for more, you're listening to the right podcast.
Yes. And throughout this episode, Janae is going to be responsible for asking the clarifying questions if I get a little bit too heady and in the weeds. And in our experience of talking to business owners about these types of things, there's generally two types of people. One is the person that says, "Ooh, this sounds really cool. I'm going to go learn more about this. I'm going to create the free make.com account and I'm going to go in and try to create some basic workflows and just kind of like get my hands dirty and see how this feels." And then there's the second type of person that says, "I want you to do this for me. I'm never going to log into a tool like that. I have no interest in figuring out how these automations are supposed to run, and I just want to pay you to do that." And so that, in our experience, is the two types. So if you are the latter, we do this at Big Bad Marketing for clients. I should say, I do this at Big Bad Marketing for clients. You don't have to worry about Janae setting up your workflows. But it really is a matter of, as you listen to these 5 workflows, as you start to get your wheels turning about how AI can play a part in your business, feel free to reach out to us and we'll have our contact information in the show notes. If you are like, you know what, this is just over my head, I just can't.
Yeah. Thanks, Brooke. That's accurate. All of that's really accurate. And business owner, don't feel any kind of way, whichever one of those camps you land in, because if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, I get into this gritty stuff, and now we're going to give you the ideas and the steps so you can walk through and do it yourself, awesome. And if you're like, okay, I conceptually understand what you're talking about, I have a need for these things, I just don't want to be the one to do it, That's exactly right. That's the whole thing we're getting at, which is not only that you don't want to build this actual process, but that you are taking the steps to get your time back by considering ways to be more efficient as a business owner. That's our whole game at Big Bad Marketing. So whether that's through AI or marketing or business operations and systems in general, like you're in the right place listening to this. And if you like these kinds of ideas, tips, strategies, ways to do better at what you're doing so you have more time to eat pizza and take yoga classes and sleep while AI tools are working for you, sign up for our Big Bad Marketing email newsletter, which is not AI generated. It's totally created by Brooke and I. This is where that's our superpower, is writing cool stuff that's engaging, interesting, and super useful for you. And you can sign up for that at www.bigbadmarketing.com/newsletter. And we will send you all kinds of ideas on a monthly basis so you can step up your game.
Beautiful. And let's go ahead and hop into our first workflow. And this is actually a set of automations that we set up, and it's all about transparency. So we use a CRM, a customer resource management tool, as our backend called High Level. And High Level does everything from holding our contact list. We send emails from there. It's where we do our contracting and our invoicing. So
what if someone else is using a CRM and they're just not familiar with that acronym, what are a few of the other pretty common CRMs someone would use to do those things?
yeah, and so
Is that
Honeybook
like a Salesforce?
Salesforce is a super common one. HubSpot is another really popular one for small businesses. So any kind of tool where you're, plugging in a lot of information, it's doing multiple things for you. So in our case, that's High Level. And then we use Slack internally for communication between Janae and I to categorize our customer stuff and our payment stuff and anything else that, any other kind of nonsense that runs through the business.
It's a lot of nonsense.
Yes. So our first thing when we thought about automation was, okay, when are people signing contracts? Hey, did that appointment get booked? Did that invoice payment come through? Did that contract get created? And so we were asking these questions constantly, and it's like, there's got to be a better way that we can just get a push notification from High Level whenever one of these events occurs, and then we'll get a message in Slack where we are already working throughout the day. So we set up a channel in Slack for High Level notifications, and then we went to make.com and we said, okay, there's a High Level integration. When this event happens, I want you to send a notification to Slack that says this. So when somebody schedules an appointment in Go High Level, that's going to...
So like our Calendly type tool?
Yes.
Okay.
Take that information about that appointment and send it into our Slack channel. So now, anytime an appointment is booked, it goes through the High Level platform, it goes into make.com, triggers this workflow, and outputs it in Slack so that there is more transparency in our business. And I'm no longer saying to Janae, hey, did that invoice get paid? But we're automatically receiving these notifications. So I can just pop into Slack and say, hey, it doesn't look like that invoice got paid. Let me go ahead and reach out to the client.
Okay. So to ensure that I'm tracking with what you said, we're using for our business, forget all the AI stuff. In our business, we use a software tool to help us manage all of the different clients we have, projects we have going on, invoice those people, communicate with them, set up appointments, track follow-ups, send them emails to let them know about new things we're offering. That's a pretty standard practice in many businesses, like on a global scale. People are using a software to do that. That's the CRM you mentioned. It's just like a software to track all the things that are happening with people we're interacting with to become customers, who may be our customers or we're past customers, all of these things. Okay, so what we're saying is that tool, we wanted to create a way for that tool to communicate with us in channels that we're using more frequently.
Yes.
So we could have set it up. So instead of we use Slack, and I wanted to mention, we have a whole podcast episode that talks about all of these other softwares and tools we're using that make our lives easier. Slack is one of them. So if you're not already using Slack or following along, we will link that episode in the show notes where we talk about how we're using Slack on a daily basis because we use it so much. But where I'm going is like, so we have the CRM, and what we wanted from the CRM is that now it communicates with Brooke and I in a way that is actually useful for us without having to constantly log into the CRM and check, did this email get sent? Did this person book their call? Do we need to follow up with that person? So what Brooke created was a automation, is what you called it, like I'm trying to think of another way to explain that, but basically something that happens automatically when when one action is taken. You have set up an automation so that something automatically happens as a result of that action. So kind of like when you get an email on your phone, for example, you automatically hear a little ding. This is a system to create sort of an equivalent of that, where when something happens, instead of it being when we receive an email to our inbox, we hear a ding. When one of those steps happens, when someone pays their invoice, when someone books a call, the automation sends a message to us in our Slack channel.
Exactly.
Which could have also been, maybe we would have preferred to, maybe you, listener, would prefer, instead of it going to Slack, that when you get paid, when your client books a call, when someone cancels a call, whatever it is, that you get an email about it, or that you get a text message about it, or some other number of things. But the basic of this automation is that we're being notified that an action has happened.
Exactly. And this gives us more visibility into what's happening in our business. And that's the whole purpose. And it's worth mentioning that tools like a high level, they have notification options for certain things, but that functionality was limited in a way that it made sense for us to very quickly set this up in make.com.
Okay, got it. So what we're talking about here in this episode in its entirety is workflows and automations to make those workflows simpler. So automation being the automatic action that will happen as a result of one action being completed. And then workflow being understanding a process in the business, like we walked through, where there's a step-by-step start and end.
Yes. And so this first workflow, that's just a 1-2. We're saying high level, send this certain information based on this trigger, then send the message to Slack, 1-2. So as we dive into workflow number 2, things are starting to get a little more intricate. And this is really where a tool like make.com shines. So the second workflow we're going to talk through is actually the workflow for our podcast.
Oh, so you're hearing it right now. So we are AI podcasters.
Well, the automation will kick off when we're done. But in the conversations about how do we bring more efficiency into our business, we said, you know what? We love recording the podcast. That part is great. But then we have to go through and we have to decide on the title. We have to create the show notes. We have to come up with ideas for social media posts based on it. We have to do all these other things afterwards that make it more of a time investment than we would like for it to be. So we said, you know what? Let's set up an automation. So here's what that automation looks like end to end. We record in Zoom. So there is a trigger that says, hey, watch the recordings that are happening in Zoom. And if any of those recordings say podcast in the title, because our meeting invite says podcast, then I want you to grab the transcript from that. And then we do a couple of in-between things to take the transcript and make it ingestible for Claude. And then we send the transcript along with a prompt into Claude. Now, this isn't a front-end chat. This is something called an API, an application programming interface. And that is a separate thing that we pay for behind the scenes. It is extremely low cost. It's like 4 cents to do a prompt to the Claude API or something. It's ridiculously inexpensive. But you don't need to know about that right now because make.com makes it super easy for you to set all these things up together. So then we say, okay, Claude, I want you to take this transcript. I want you to create the title. I want you to create the show notes. I want you to pull out any instance where we said, hey, we'll reference this in the show notes, and go grab that resource and pull it in for us. And then I want you to give us 4 ideas for Instagram posts and 2 ideas for LinkedIn posts. And Claude goes and does its thing. And then we say, now spit that all out into a Google Doc and then send us a Slack notification with the link to that Google Doc in our podcast channel of Slack. So end to end, it's like take the transcript from Zoom, toss it into Claude with a prompt, spit out the result into a Google Doc, and then give us that Google Doc in Slack. So at this point, you can start to see how the workflows come together when we are taking different tools and leveraging them side by side to get to an eventual output, which is we want the title, the show notes, and these social media ideas without us even having to touch anything. So we're going to hit stop recording on this episode today, and this workflow is going to kick off within 15 minutes of that happening, so that 30 minutes after we're done recording, we've got all that information, and then we can just go upload the podcast and we're done.
Okay. So is it fair to say, in essence, we have a bunch of different tools to run our business and we're making them talk to each other?
Exactly.
We make them be friends. We make them work together. But the cool thing about the AI and the make.com and the APIs is that they can talk to each other without us having to do anything.
Bingo.
So in the past, what would happen was all of these same steps, except it required human intervention to do it, which was, okay, we would record it. Then we would get the transcript by logging into Zoom, downloading the transcript, copying the transcript and bringing that manually, like using a mouse, into ChatGPT and being like, hey, distill this, give us options for the title of this podcast episode, give us a blurb about it, give us a few ideas about social media. So we were just doing that one from transcript to Chad ourselves. And then once Chad gave us that, then we were taking it to the next system and uploading it. Then one of my favorite parts of this is that we would have to like listen to the podcast or write notes while listening or while recording and be like, hey, we mentioned this episode. Hey, we mentioned this resource. So we would have to like be a human listener and go and be like, which things did we talk about? And what do we need to link to? Then we would have to go get those links. So now what we're saying is AI is doing all of that listening, scouring, scraping, and giving us the resources so we don't have to do that.
Exactly. It's letting us do the piece of the podcasting that we love, which is this, the conversation and sharing knowledge with you, listener. And it takes out all of that busy work that could at some point be a factor in us being like, you know what, we're just spending too much time. We can't do it anymore. This enables us to continue to create the podcast on a comfortable cadence because we have removed so much of the hassle behind the scenes of podcasting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which would make this an otherwise insurmountable investment of time to actually accomplish it, because it would take longer than the than the rewards we're getting. And listener, if you're listening to this, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. We value your time, and we know that our listeners are getting something out of this. But we do it because we enjoy it, not because our listenership is huge or that we're under the illusion that we have paparazzi outside waiting to talk to us about our amazing, amazing podcast.
Yeah, we just love doing this and sharing the things that we're doing. So our hope in all of this is that the light bulb goes off for you and you say, you know what? Okay, I don't have a podcast, but I do have this other thing that I'm doing every week, and this is a way I can make it more efficient. So let's dive into number 3, because I think this is going to be applicable to anyone who is in a service-based business who regularly speaks with clients. This is our client call workflow, and we record calls in Zoom with our clients. Many of you are probably going to do something similar. The tool itself might change, but you're probably getting on client calls regularly and you are recording those conversations. And I know that there are a lot of AI tools out there that, like Otter is one that comes to mind, that will, you kind of invite your AI tool to the call and then they take notes and come back to you and say, okay, here's your takeaways. So what we did is we said, you know what, instead of that, we want to build a workflow that is going to, again, take the transcript from a client call recording. So it's going to look for client call with Big Bad Marketing, which is the way that we title our meetings. And it's going to send that into Claude and it's going to say, okay, I want you to listen through this. And yes, give me the Big Bad Marketing takeaways, give me the client takeaways. But in addition, I want you to look for a couple of other things too. And this is where the beauty of the custom workflows comes in, is that we can say, hey, I want you to look for opportunities for expanding this relationship. I want you to latch on to anything the client might have said during this conversation that leads us to believe there's another work stream that they might be interested in bringing to us. Like if they mention that their website needs an overhaul, if they mention that they're upset with their website hosting, if they mention that their social media person is not delivering for them, like give
that they need
us
AI integration in their business.
Right, exactly. Give us this list of potential opportunities. And then I also want you to call out anything that we might potentially be able to use as a testimonial for this client. Did they mention that they were particularly happy with something? And so there's a little bit more intelligence behind the prompt where we're trying to tease out insights in a way that a traditional, like, here's your action items and follow-ups aren't doing. And then similar to the last workflow, Claude then gives us that in a Google Doc and sends it into a Slack channel. And this whole workflow really enables us to then not have to be this just crazy taking notes every time we're talking to a client. We can be more in the conversation because we know that after the fact, we're going to get all these takeaways and things. So it's not putting as much pressure on us to do that throughout the call. Though we do take meticulous notes, I will say we're very good
also,
about that.
yes, we are handwritten note takers by and large. Okay, so at what point do clients become aware that any of this is happening? Like, yes, they see a note taker, but are they ever aware of these processes at play? And if so, to what degree?
I think the only thing that a client needs to be aware of, and Zoom and other tools take care of this for us, is that notification of like recording in progress. And we tell all of our clients like, hey, we're going to record this meeting. Are you comfortable with that? So it's like, as long as there's that disclosure, we don't necessarily need to tell our clients, hey, by the way, we're mining this conversation behind the scenes to look for other opportunities and ways that we can work with you. Like, no, that's something we might be doing in our own brains anyway as we listen. I don't think you necessarily need to disclose everything that your AI is doing. It's not harmful. We're not trying to publish this conversation elsewhere. This is all for internal use for ourselves. And so for that reason, I don't know that you really need to share everything about your internal workflows with your clients. But no, they're never going to know that this is happening, is the answer.
Okay, so that's where we also preface them with our human voice on a call of like, anything you say can and will be used to promote our business.
Yes, and I think we do that in like the very, very first calls of,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If you say something good, we have been known to tell other people. And we encourage you, if you're having a good experience, to tell other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to say this one seems straightforward, and I think it is, but where I continue to be like, oh, wait a second, is you mentioned on that first automation that we described where our CRM tells our internal communication tool about all of the things happening. That's a 1 to 2. And so what I just want to do here is check in on like, what numbers are we at? Because there's a lot more steps and a lot more tools involved at this point. So not so much to overwhelm people, but to like get an understanding of all of the different things that are happening and how many steps might be expected.
Yeah. And in the workflow itself, there are a few more steps because anyone who has worked with data and APIs in any capacity understands that you can't necessarily take a text-based input and just drop it into a tool. You need to format things properly. So, Janae, this will like probably not make sense to you, but like JSON is a very common type of formatting. So we have to take the transcript from Zoom, and over a series of 4 steps, I basically say, parse this, remove these certain things, decode this encoding, and then plug it into a JSON prompt that Claude can understand. So that
so we're taking it from one language to another, and there's just a few steps to get there.
A few steps that have to happen. Yep. And
I don't speak
then,
JSON, but I do understand like
yeah,
language translation. Okay.
exactly. Yes. It's just like translating English to Spanish in your brain. That's all we're doing. It just takes 4 steps to do that in make.com. So basically, we have Zoom, Claude, Google Docs, and Slack. And those are really the foundation for several workflows that we have because we want to take spoken words in transcript form, send it into a prompt, and get an output. And we always want to be notified in Slack because that is our primary way that we communicate at Big Bad Marketing. And I know every workday we are going to open up Slack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick question then before we move on to the next automation is what are you going to do with all this time you've got back now that you're not translating codes and manually moving them from one place to the other?
Oh, well, in my case, I'm going to fill it with more work. But what I
Yeah.
wish that I was saying is, and granted, I think we're just in the growth stage. I think if we were a more established business where I said, you know what, I
When
have
we are a more established business.
well, I think, I don't, I think for me, when you have a very clear set of responsibilities and you can make that very clear set of responsibilities more efficient, it can free up your time for other things. I think in our case of building a business and being early stage entrepreneurs, we will always find other ways to spend our time. But for me, spending it on lead generation and spending it on getting in front of people and telling people about what we do is the way that I am using a lot of this time.
Yeah, totally. My question is more from the silly fun side of it. So
Mm.
take a moment to do a claps and a Ric Flair and like be a little silly for a second. What you gonna do with all that time that now you're just like, I'm bored because I have freed up so much of my time using these AI tools and I don't have to do any more work right now. What would you do?
That's hysterical. I'm an optimizer in my own life, so I would probably exercise or read a book or practice piano or do something that I feel like is challenging my brain and body in other ways. I wish that I could be like, I'm going to go lay in the grass and watch the clouds, but I'm not going to do that because I struggle to do those types of things. Janae, what are you going to do now that I have freed up so much time for our business?
Yeah. Well, I love actually what you're saying about playing the piano. I play the guitar, so maybe some of that. I do pottery, like just things that I like to do. And I think that it is a lost art, the ability to be a little bit bored in modern time because we have so much to do all the time and steps to do them. And technology both enables us to move more quickly and do way more than we could before. But it is a double-edged sword because now I think you're kind of proving the point I was maybe poking at is like now that we're more efficient, we can continue to be more efficient and we just sort of exponentially grow towards efficiency because now we have extra time. We don't have to be like copying and pasting and doing all this. We can use that time to go copy and paste other stuff and do other stuff over here, even when that is going to inhuman networking events and in real life and talking to people. And growing the business, of course. But I was just being a little silly and fun. And what I also love here is I'm sure there's technology and robots and things that are like playing pianos and making pottery, but there's no amount of AI that can teach you better muscle memory than you sitting at your damn piano and playing it and practicing. So I love that building a more efficient business not only means you may have free your time to go do more business stuff, but also that maybe it creates a different opportunity in your life to do things that feel good for you. So you have more to pour into the cup of your business because you're coming from a really fulfilled place because you've got all this time to eat pizza and put your feet up and play with your dog.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's not even that I have all this time to spend. I think I would liken the implementation of AI to hiring a housekeeper.
Okay.
And it removes the mental weight of certain things from my mind, which isn't a direct, like, I'm now going to use the time that I have freed up from, I'm no longer cleaning. I'm going to fill that time with other things, but I no longer carry the mental weight of having to clean my house. So what these AI workflows do for me is I no longer have to wonder about if the invoices are paid and the contracts are signed. I no longer have to think about, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do all this stuff for the podcast before I publish it. So I am basically removing mental weight out of my own brain. And every time I put an automation on something, it no longer takes up space in my brain. So that's how I would describe my experience with these automations.
Yeah. Okay. It's like helping alleviate the getting bogged down in admin tasks in a business in a way where it's actually reminding me of Alex Hormozy, who is our guru. Highly recommend if you haven't yet, go listen to some Alex Hormozy, who repeats the same things over and over because they're so true. And I say that in like the best way. Like the principles are the principles are the principles. And one of those is exactly what you're describing now. And often the content that they're putting out, Hormozy brand is putting out right now, is showing real people, real business owners, their question. They come up and they ask a question, and then Alex responds to them in real time. And often that question is like, I'm spending so much time on admin, and if I could just get rid of that task off my plate, then I would be able to make more sales because I'm the best salesperson at the company or whatever, and generate, 3x my business, 10x my business, 200x, like whatever it is. And it's sort of an ironic situation as it's occurring to me right now that they're basically going to ask permission to offload admin tasks. This is one of those repetitive topics that comes up. And he's like, well, okay, how much more money could your business make if you weren't doing that admin task or checking in on these invoices and tools? And they are usually like, I could double it or 10x it or whatever their number is. And he's like, okay, how much would it cost to hire a person to manage that for you? And the question is just like, it's so little. It's a fraction of what they would be able to bring in if they had that time. So what I'm getting at is if you're not in yet a position of making tens of hundreds of thousands of millions of billions of dollars and talking to Alex Hormozy to get the permission, take it from us. You can build some API integrations, AI tools to get that time back so you can better leverage the time you do have on important things that are going to grow your business. And rant.
Beautiful. I love that. Always important to keep in mind. And the fourth thing, the fourth workflow for us is analytics reporting. And to be honest, the vast majority of business owners that we speak with have no clue what is going on with their analytics. And when I say analytics, I'm mostly referring to website and search data. So what we do is we have a weekly analytics notification that obviously drops into a Slack channel where we say, okay, I want you to go to our Google Analytics and I want you to pull the number of users to our website in the past week and give us a weekly. So it's a week over week snapshot. So it goes out to analytics. It goes into Search Console and says, how many clicks have we gotten through Google for particular queries? How many impressions have we had? What's our average position? And then I want you to go into our CRM high level and tell me how many contacts we have right now in our email list and how many opportunities we have open. And then we're going to take all of that information together from each of those systems and we're going to pull it into a single Slack notification so that Janae and I can understand week over week, okay, how are the users to the website looking? Have things gone up or down dramatically since last week? Have our contacts gone up or down dramatically? Have our opportunities gone up or down dramatically? And it sort of is a way for us to have that weekly notification, and we get it at 8 a.m. on Monday morning because the workflow is run on a schedule and delivers us this information. And again, it's just another way to have visibility into things and enables us to then take action if we're like, why are our website users 0? What's happening here? Is our website down? Like it's just sort of another way for us to understand what's happening behind the scenes. So that's our just weekly high level synopsis. And then we have a more in-depth monthly report. Now this one is probably the most complex workflow that we have set up right now because I will go in and plug certain information into a Google Sheet on a monthly basis. And we do this for us and for our clients who we are managing the websites for. I will go in and plug in certain information, and then I take that information, put it into a Claude prompt. Claude spits out a report per client, and then obviously sends us a notification into Slack. So that is like a high level monthly analytics report that again gives details from Google Analytics, Google Search Console, our CRM, and distills that all into a report and says, hey, last month, here's what happened. This went up, this went down. It makes comparisons between current month and prior month, and then gives a couple of action items. That's a part of the prompt to say, okay, this went down. Okay, let's take an example. Say your bounce rate went up dramatically on a certain page on your website, which means more people are exiting your website from a particular page. Okay, let's go take a look at that, and then let's dive in and figure out why that's happening. So those are two analytics reporting workflows that we have. Those are more so for the data-minded people who are wanting to tease out this information, because to be honest, very few people actually log into Google Analytics on a regular basis and say, what's going on here? So this is a way to just, again, take something that's happening behind the scenes and bring it to the forefront, somewhere that we can actually then take action on it as needed. That was a lot.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. There's so much value in this. And so maybe between the two of us here, it's becoming more clear. One of us is like a vibes-based person, and one of us is a data-based person. One of us is a database. Just kidding. I guess what I want to get at is for the business owner, for a lovely listener here who, I don't want to say could care less about this stuff, but even me being a vibes-based person, I can understand the value of looking at real-time data and being able to take action based on data. So when you say, oh, suddenly our website has 0 visitors, that's a problem. There means probably the website is down for some reason. There's some issue that we need to address. But to your point, and the reason we have this automation, for example, is that if I wasn't receiving a notification that there's an issue with the website, I might not ever really be checking that because I'm vibes based and I'm walking around being like, hey, come get your marketing by us, and not like looking into the website and are we having users and the health of these things. So this automation helps counteract that by bringing data to you to say, hey, you might want to know about this. There's a little issue here. It's showing us the symptoms of things going on so we can get to the root cause.
Yeah. And on the opposite side of the coin, maybe our users spiked one month and we're like, what is happening? And then we find out there's some type of PR that we weren't even a part of that's driving more people. And now we need to respond to that in a particular way, or that there's just so much intelligence around it, but you have to raise it up because, yeah, Janae, I think the vast majority of business owners are like you, where that is just bottom of the barrel in terms of things that they even want to spend their time looking at. And it's just not likely to happen.
But what I want to do here is highlight the importance of this for all my vibes based people, because okay, I'm like being silly and cheeky and like calling myself that, and yes, it's true. I tend to be more on that side of the spectrum than you are. But for other people who are like, yeah, I don't have time to look into who's visiting which website page and whatnot, especially if you're in the beginning stage of building your business. Maybe you don't even have that much traffic to be concerned about this stuff. But the point here is making decisions about actions we are going to take based on data is often the best way to do it. Yes, you can use your intuition, but ideally there's a combination here, right? That's what one of our people coined as data-driven intuition is we want to make informed decisions. And so we want this information so we can say, hey, there's some issue, let's address it, and not just be like, hey, you know what would be fun today is if we build a new page for our website, or like if we just go to this networking event randomly and we don't do anything with the email addresses. It's helping us understand like what is actually happening so we can make choices that are going to at least correlationally lead to results that we want.
Exactly. We want everything
it's having
up and to the right.
Plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We're giving ourselves the information. It's a lot like stats in sports, I would think, where okay, is this player 100% going to get a field goal or a win, a score, like score in the basket because their history and their stats say that they have 99% of the time that they score? No, but directionally, we can assume pretty well, like, yeah, they're usually likely to get a 3-point shot from this line. And we might not want to put this other player in who generally doesn't get that basket. My sports knowledge is so bad, I realized after I started this metaphor, but I think it's still a good metaphor. I just don't have the information to bring it home.
No, I think you brought it home at the end with sticking with like 3 points and baskets. I think that was good. I thought we were getting lost in the weeds of conflating analogies when we said field goal, but you nailed it.
I don't know about field goals. I don't even know what sport that is.
That's
I was
football.
a swimmer, so we didn't
There
even
you
have
go.
balls in that game. I don't even know
No
if you
water
call it a
polo.
game.
It's a sport game, sports balls. Okay, we know.
Take us through our fifth.
I was about to
our
say,
fifth
we always
observation.
know that it's time to start wrapping up the podcast when we start to get a little rambly and silly. But this last workflow, in my opinion, is maybe the most fun workflow that we have because we're now, I'll just tell you about it. I'm excited.
Let's go.
We decided that we wanted to start responding to some RFPs. RFP is a request for proposal. And there are federal RFPs, there are local municipalities that put out RFPs where they're basically saying, I am looking for someone who does this type of work. Basically, respond to me, give me a quote for how much that's going to be, and I'm going to pick one of you to do the work. Like a job ad, exactly. So what we did is we said, okay, there's a federal website called sam.gov where they list these RFPs, and sam.gov has an API. Yay. That means that they release information publicly that you can access by plugging into their API. So we said, okay, you know what? We are going to send a request to the sam.gov API for anything that is listed as an RFP in the last week that has our particular code. It's an NAICS code for marketing consulting and the work that we do. So this workflow runs every week and it says, okay, now send that request to sam.gov. I want you to bring back any RFP that fits our criteria, which is our NAICS code. And then we're going to send all of those into Claude, and Claude is going to do an initial review and it is going to rate how closely those RFPs match the work that we do. And then it's going to spit out a message into Slack that says, hey, these are the RFPs that you should go and respond to. So that then takes this process of like, I'm going to go to sam.gov and I'm going to look through all these RFPs to a workflow where one, it's kicking off automatically once a week. We do a check for our particular code. It sends us back any relevant information. Claude does a first pass and tells us what is interesting to us and then sends it into Slack. So instead of saying, there were 47 RFPs listed last week, it's like, these are the 2 that you need to focus on. So that to me, I think is super cool and fun and interesting. I nerded out over that one a little bit.
No, I love this. And I think this is a great example of leveraging AI, not to just give us our time back, but to make possible an action and exercise in our business that we would not have the time for otherwise. Like between us two, there's no way either of us could just scour through pages and pages of RFPs, hopefully find a few that might be in our wheelhouse, then continue to hone that list and be like, these 2 actually fit our superpowers. Now let's extract what we need to and respond. There's no way we would be doing that. So this is an automation that creates opportunity for us in a way we never would have. It's so instead of freeing up time, it's doing the opposite. It's like pointing us to, hey, you might want to carve out 2 hours to create a proposal for this because this is exactly what you do and they're going to love you.
Yes, exactly. So it's basically bringing opportunities to our door when I think, we for months and months and months had so many conversations around should we respond to RFPs? And now we're finally getting into it a little bit, but it is time consuming, y'all. If you haven't done it before, it is incredibly time consuming. So just being able to narrow it down to ones that are really going to be the right fit for us, that was very helpful. But I got to say, there are not a lot of marketing consulting RFPs that come through the main websites. We're still trying to figure our way through this, but
Yeah, I think what we have noticed is that the marketing pieces are coming through smaller municipalities, so government, city governments, counties, state governments, things like that. Even smaller organizations like universities, things like that, who have like a very specific marketing need, which makes sense because if you think about like, is the federal government necessarily looking for a way to market anything? When's the last time the federal government? Sorry to our federal government situation, but when's the last time they did like a good job with a marketing campaign? Was it that lady doing this?
yeah, maybe. But I
I
will
missed that
say,
lady's name.
for folks in businesses where RFPs are a big thing, like major construction companies who are looking for like road work RFPs and buildings and stuff, like this can be incredibly useful if you know that there are a lot of RFPs being released on sam.gov. So this is a workflow I would highly encourage y'all to look into if that is a space where you are spending a lot of your time, or even and especially if you have an employee whose sole function is to respond to RFPs. This could really help them find more space in their day for the actual responding part.
Okay, yes, which means then you're doing a better job at the thing you're giving to them to say, hey, we can do this instead of spending all your time like researching it. And it also makes me think the same is also true for grants, for funding opportunities, which if you're in a nonprofit might be more in your zone of need. And if you can apply the same sort of automation to finding grants that might be applicable to your business, that would be, again, helping someone who maybe has a full-time role in your business to find the right grant so they can spend more time actually applying to the grant instead of searching for it.
Exactly. And like we mentioned in the beginning of this episode, our hope here is to get your wheels turning, to get you to think of similar spaces in your business where you are doing repetitive tasks, where you are spending a lot of time and it is maybe not necessary. So we know this episode was a little bit lengthy, but hopefully you found a lot of value in this. And we would love if you would subscribe so that you do not miss a future episode of the Big Bad Marketing Podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Bye.